evening, folks, and welcome to Infowars Nightly News on this Thursday, March the 1st edition, with me, your host, Paul Joseph Watson. And straight to our top headline tonight out of the Telegraph: conservative US blogger Andrew Breitbart dies. The conservative American journalist, author, and blogger Andrew Breitbart died in Los Angeles of natural causes on Thursday morning, according to an announcement posted on his Big Journalism website. He was 43 years old. He reveled in baiting the left and President Barack Obama in particular, who he described in a New York Times Magazine piece as a, quote, Marxist. He strongly championed the Tea Party, whose fortunes rose with his after Mr. Obama's election in late 2008. And of course, as most of you will know, Andrew Breitbart rose to prominence by way of his work with Matt Drudge over at drudgereport.com, and he became one of the biggest thorns, certainly, in the side of the leftist establishment. And of course, he also became renowned for his energy and fervor, which he used to argue his political corner with leftist media elites and Obamanoid supporters, which is why his untimely death has come as such a shock to many in the media. And it's another reminder of our mortality. For someone to die who was obviously relatively young. But in a related story that we've got on Infowars.com, will damning Obama footage still be released after Breitbart's death? Breitbart's untimely death has shocked the media world and left some to question whether or not damning footage of Obama in his youth, which Breitbart announced he had obtained only last month, will still be released. We report on Infowars.com today. According to some observers, the footage threatened to sink Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. And this is what Breitbart said in this infamous speech, which he only made last month, which we're going to play in a minute here. Quote, I've got video from his college days to show you why radical division and class warfare are central to what Hope and Change was sold in 2008. The videos are going to come out, Breitbart said. And he basically talks about having this footage of Obama hanging around with, quote, a bunch of silver ponytails, referring to Bill and Bernardine Dorm, who, of course, were in the Weather Underground domestic terrorist group who bombed the Pentagon State Department back in the 70s. And if you know anything about Barack Obama's history, you'll know that his entire political career was basically a vehicle through which these Marxists, these Weather Underground people, radicals, used him to put their mouthpiece in the White House. And there's also a lot of evidence to suggest, in fact, that Obama's book was written by Bill Ayers, who was obviously the leader of the Weather Underground terrorist organization. So these are the people who helped launch Barack Obama's political career. And Breitbart comes out just less than a month ago and says he's got video of Obama palling around with them when he was in college. And he threatens to release it during this speech. Obviously, that's going to have a major impact on Obama's re-election campaign. And so it remains to be seen whether that footage will come out. Mancow Muller, who, of course, is a friend of this show, and a big radio host over in Chicago, tweets today regarding Breitbart's death, quote, he told me recently he had big dirt on Obama. Many believe it's murder. That's what Mancow Muller says in his tweet today. So, I mean, details surrounding the circumstances of his death remain sketchy. We're told there's going to be an autopsy. His family is saying he had heart problems and he just collapsed. So, you know, there could have been some dangerous pharmaceuticals that he took that contributed to his death. We just don't know. The details are yet to come out. But it remains to be seen whether this damning Obama footage will ever emerge. And if it doesn't, serious questions need to be asked. So let's roll that footage now of Breitbart talking about this film of Obama palling around with Weather Underground terrorists.
And so what do we get now in Barack Obama? Well, I've got videos, by the way. This election, we're going to vet him. I've got videos. This election, we're going to vet him from his college days to show you why racial division and class warfare are central to what Hope and Change was sold in 2008. The videos are going to come out. The narrative is going to come out that Barack Obama met a bunch of silver ponytails back in the 1980s, like Bill and Bernadine Dorn, who, equally radical, said one day we're going to have the presidency, and the rest of us slept while they plotted and they plotted and they plotted, and they oversaw hundreds of millions of dollars in the Annenberg Challenge, and they had real money from real capitalists.
Moving on to the next story on Infowars Nightly News, Google privacy changes March the 1st, how to clear your search history account information, out of the Washington Post. The first and easiest way to use Google but keep the company from collecting information on you is to use the company's services without signing into your account, explains this article. YouTube, search and maps don't require users to be logged in to use the services, though even signed out users will still see ads based on their search terms, etc. And if you go to this article, it tells you how to, first of all, delete everything Google's collected about you and prevent them from accessing it in future with the announcement of these privacy changes, which is basically every web search that you perform and every other action that you take on the internet is going to be cataloged and shared by Google across its platform of services, so you can be bombarded with tailored ads. And of course, it also came out a couple of years ago that they're literally reading your emails if you use Gmail, again, to target you with personalized ads. And these privacy changes are, in fact, illegal in Europe, and that's why there's so much controversy about them. But you can go click through to that article and find out how to protect yourself against this invasion of your privacy. Is the controversy going to stop people from using Google's services? Well, don't hold your breath. Next story. Hillary Clinton admits US and Al-Qaeda on the same side in Syria. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has admitted that Al-Qaeda and other groups on the State Department's terror list are on the same side as the United States in Syria, and that they are aiding opposition rebels. In an interview with BBC News, Clinton states, quote, "We have a very dangerous set of actors in the region, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and those who are on our terrorist list, to be sure, claiming to support the opposition in Syria." So let's go to that BBC News clip now.
We have a very dangerous set of actors in the region, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and those who are on our terrorist list, to be sure, claiming to support the opposition.
So there you have it, confirmation from the mouth of the warmonger Hillary Clinton herself. Hillary admits what we knew all along, just like in Libya, where after the glorious humanitarian intervention sold by the global establishment media, the country which had the highest standard of living on the entire continent is now a civil war-torn hellhole where anyone who these gang of rebels don't like is tortured and carted off to a concentration camp. Just like in Libya, the Al-Qaeda terrorists that served the US military-industrial complex so well in Afghanistan, Bosnia, and Serbia are back on the scene in Syria after, of course, having been airlifted there by NATO and US forces. And they're now carrying out terrorist bombings on behalf of the opposition rebels in Syria, which the corporate media still continues to describe as, quote, innocent demonstrators, even as they are photographed carrying around rocket-propelled grenades. So imagine if a bunch of Tea Partiers went down to the White House carrying rocket-propelled grenades. Do you think the media would describe them as innocent protesters? What do you think would happen to them? Of course, they'd have their heads blown off by snipers in a heartbeat. But the rebels in Syria, who are doing very much the same thing, publicly backed by Al-Qaeda terrorists, as Hillary Clinton just admitted, they're the good guys. Let's just gloss over the annoying little fact that the Arab League report said there was indiscriminate violence on both sides of the equation and that this was a civil war. And let's just concentrate, you know, on Syria Danny, who's on CNN again for the 21st day running, begging for a US military intervention because it certainly helped those black folks in Libya who are now being bulldozed into a landfill, didn't it? It was a glorious humanitarian intervention there. And now, in addition, we've got reports that rebel leaders are running around bragging to the news agencies that the US and France are handing them anti-aircraft missiles. But according to David Cameron and William Hague, we're not arming anyone, even as British special forces have been on the ground for weeks directing rebel and al-Qaeda forces in Syria, as well as thousands of US troops training these rebels on the borders around the country. And, you know, they want these final two dominoes. They need Syria and Iran to fall, and they're next on the chopping block. So the only way to prevent it is for Russia and China, as we've seen with the UN failure to obtain the resolution, is for them to back up their tough talk with some genuine action, which is not likely. And if it does happen, it will only create more chaos on a global scale. So again, Hillary Clinton admits that the US and al-Qaeda are in league once again. Moving on to our next story, shifting back to domestic matters now. Media Matters boss paid former partner 850 grand blackmail settlement. Media Matters chief David Brock said paid a former domestic partner $850,000 after being threatened with damaging information involving the organization's donors and the IRS. A deal that Brock later characterized as a blackmail payment, according to legal documents obtained by FoxNews.com. Brock, 49, heads the non-profit Media Matters for America, which bills itself as a watchdog of the conservative media, but has recently come under fire for allegedly coordinating with Democrats in what could be seen as a violation of its tax-exempt status. So more dirt coming out on Media Matters. They're on the ropes once again. Of course, Media Matters routinely targets Infowars and Alex Jones for character assassinations and smear attacks. We had the big investigation by the Daily Caller last month, which confirmed what we've been reporting for years, which is the fact that Media Matters is little more than a propaganda front group for the Obama White House. Regular meetings, conference calls with White House officials, and then, of course, you have the $1 million donation from George Soros himself. So Media Matters is basically an attack dog whose sole purpose is to intimidate television networks and radio networks into firing anyone that stands up to the Obama administration or the globalists in any way. Glenn Beck, Andrew Napolitano, Pat Buchanan, all attacked by Media Matters, all now off the air, certainly on mainstream television. As I said, they routinely attack Ron Paul. They routinely attack our operation, Alex Jones, Infowars. But unfortunately for Media Matters, their influence is rapidly declining. Their website traffic, as was revealed by the Daily Caller investigation, gets weaker and weaker every month. Infowars.com completely creams MediaMatters.org when it comes to readership. So now, in the aftermath of this Daily Caller investigation, they're basically in terminal decline. They've been completely exposed for what they are, which is an Obamanoid mouthpiece, a front for the White House. And it certainly goes a long way to squashing their credibility, which they claim to be a non-partisan alternative media organization. That's been shot to pieces. And before too long, I think it'll come to the stage where Media Matters no longer matters.